Have you ever noticed, my friend, how many stories will lead us by the hand on who to root for? What I mean by that is that once it's clear who the protagonist is, we start to follow on their journey and go alongside their decisions as more information is presented to them. Yet, what's key here is that we are following their perspectives. We don't really have an objective view of the story unless the storyteller is trying to provide that. So again, this is up to the storyteller and the story they are telling. So depending on what story the storyteller wants to tell, they may pit one character as a protagonist over the other. Because then each character has their own viewpoint, their own perspective on the world, things they see that others might not. And you can switch between viewpoint characters. But then the thing is that there's often that filter of biases where each protagonist is seeing things as they see them rather than as they actually are. Again, it's only their perspective. Now, there are exceptions to this, especially in Who to Root For, where we may actually be watching a train wreck in slow motion, and it's just there for that fascination of watching a hero fall from grace. And again, some people actually do end up rooting for the bad guys in the story for whatever reason, whether it be that they're cool, they're attractive, whatever reason, or maybe it's simply because none of the protagonists are actually that likable, or they really don't care. I don't care about these characters. Again, that's one of the worst things a storyteller can hear about their characters. But many times it can often be about the characters they are really trying to push on people or whatever, like the ones they're really trying to build up as likable and so forth, are often the ones that the audience is just like, why is this character here? It's sort of a funny thing to watch, but it's just one of the things to really look on. But again, it's the apathy, because if the audience really dislikes a character, then they might just tune in to see if something bad will happen to them. But if they just don't care about the characters at all, nobody they've really connected with, then they're just probably going to tune out or put the book down, whatever it is. So the thing is that it's important to know what perspective you're looking at and so forth. So we can take the classic hero fighting against evil, for example, because really we are following the hero's perspective, and we are naturally supposed to root for them as the hero of the story and so forth. So we see the areas where the hero shines, where they're helping people, where they're just doing general good deeds, and yet we'll see their foes kind of be revealed for all the devastation they've caused. So it is sort of the natural general hero story. And as kind of a typical example, we can go to Star Wars, where we have Luke and the audience learning more how the Empire actually operates throughout the movie. And again, we're seeing things like, oh, they're disrupting political processes, they have blown up a planet, all those kinds of things. So we're seeing kind of things about the Empire is bad. So thus we're rooting for Luke and the Rebel Alliance to win against the Empire, even if we were kind of set up in the opening text. But again, we've kind of seen things unfold in a way that promotes us rooting for them. But what if instead of that being our first introduction to Star Wars, we saw everything through the eyes of Stormtrooper, maybe on a kind of backwater world and so forth, not really important, but still has a rebel cell, and the rebels are portrayed as disrupting peace and endangering civilians while doing it. If that was the case, then we might actually be more sympathetic to the Empire, simply because that is a perspective we have been following. Now, this brings to mind the fact is that in life, it seems that when we disagree with people, and there's a group of people that we disagree with, that we often pick out the most extreme example or the extreme difference and basically make that the standard. Like, if anyone disagrees with me on this topic, then they are all like this. And it's just something that we tend to do for whatever reason. Maybe it's to just distance ourselves from them. Maybe it's an attempt to deshumanize them. But if you watch it and see, a lot of people do it almost all the time. So it's something to be very cautious of, because when it comes down to it, if we really examine things, we would often find out that rather than the most extreme examples being kind of like the standard, we'd probably find out we have a lot more in common and a lot more we agree on. And even sometimes it may simply be like, we may disagree on this point, but we can still live in peace. We just may not like each other or hang out, but we can still be told, or we can still exist alongside each other. We don't have to just treat each other as the absolute worst person ever to exist. So it's something to really consider, and watching people do it to just kind of apply broad standards to a group that disagrees with them. So it's something that I think benefits shutting out a bit. But anyway, back to those perspectives and examples, we have the heist film. Now we are like stealing his wand, but yet many of us love heist films even if the main characters aren't trying to be Robin Hood. Rather, maybe it's simply because they're stealing from a person who's a jerk, while they are funny, clever, and charismatic. Again, they're likable characters. We actually like them and want to see them succeed. Kind of either because they're clever or they're cool, but they're funny, they're charismatic. We like these characters, so we want to see them succeed. And we're viewing at things from their perspective, and since they have a perspective that they want to steal, we are going along with the story as stealing equaling success. Another way this can play out is we have the romance protagonist. Now, one of the key things is that sometimes the story is tipped into gear by the protagonist being cheated on, and thus the cheater is a horrible person. And how could this ever be? Who would dare cheat on the protagonist? But yet, if the protagonist is actually the one who finds true love while in a relationship with another person, it's suddenly all okay because it's true love and they're the protagonist. So clearly, it must be right. So in a way, in a story, all choices of morality almost based on the protagonist's view and what story the author is telling. We can go with what is the story and whose is it. For example, with the heist film, simply because we're following kind of the heist crew, it can be a tool story and no one's actually getting hurt because it's fiction. It's a story for enjoyment. It's to kind of see a tool plan being pulled off. So that's kind of one of the things to really think about. What is the story for as well? And that key thing about perspective is that we are the viewpoint characters in our own stories. And thus, everyone is biased. We don't get out of that accusation in a sense. We don't really have a way out. We're all completely and totally inherently biased. We have all learned lessons. We all have experiences. We all have different opinions. And so that creates an inherent bias that is, well, inherently in all of us. I don't know how to say that better. But it also brings up the fact is that when we encounter a story in our lives, whether someone is trying to tell us it or they're promoting this sort of narrative to us, we need to ask, whose story are we following? Why are they giving me this narrative? And are they not telling us something? Because then a lot of people have their perspective to share, and they may not be sharing everything they see, or they actually may be sharing exactly what they see, but they, again, have their perspective that they're trying to promote. So it's something to really think of. Again, it's like, what am I not seeing from the story I am following? Is probably a better way to put it. But anyway, these are my thoughts on the matter. Why not share yours in the comments below? And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and share it so others may enjoy as well. Anyway, I'm Jonah, and you've been watching Lionsman Media, where we celebrate stories and the lessons we learn from them. Thank you for listening to my musings. Talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.